Do you ever wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and think, oh no, I need makeup, lots of makeup, just to look human? But then somehow, even once you're wearing all of that makeup, your face just looks like it's wearing makeup? Well,
you know those girls that always look clean and they never ever look like they're wearing too much makeup?
They are absolutely lying to you. This TikTok sound generally continues with,
we may not be them, but here's how to get their look.
And a multi-step makeup tutorial. Oh, what happened to just slapping on some SPF, mascara and a lip? I have a chronic illness. I can barely make it out of the bed to the bathroom to clean my face daily. And now I have to do a 20-step skincare routine. Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm not a clean girl. I know. If that surprises you, you're probably new here. Hi. Hit the like button to train the YouTube algorithm in feeding you more of my video essays about history and culture through a queer, disabled and chronically ill lens. And subscribe if you haven't already. The clean girl aesthetic has billions of views and hundreds of thousands of posts on TikTok. It's one of the most pervasive micro-trends to have emerged over the last few years. And while it's not solely responsible for messed up ideas about how our bodies are tied to our morality, after all, it's almost impossible for anyone to grow up without internalizing at least some society's racist, anti-fat messaging about how our bodies dictate our worth. Hello, circle of shame from every teen magazine I read growing up. The clean girl aesthetic does perpetuate racism, ableism and classism, and I think it's important to talk about that. Excuse me, I don't think you've got that right. The clean girl look isn't racist. Anyone can do a clean girl look. While the clean girl aesthetic is purportedly for anyone, scrolling through the hashtag on TikTok, you'll notice a lot of thin, white, young, cisgender women who have a lot of money for fancy face creams. It glamorizes not only a look, but an aspirational lifestyle that simply is not accessible for everyone. Including me. You know what my skincare regime is? Having EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It might give me chronic pain and limbs that very easily dislocate, but I also get this dewy, really stretchy skin. I want to be clear that I am not making this video to shame anyone or to single out any creators who have made videos about the clean girl aesthetic. However, I am a high femme, vintage fashion wearing lesbian. For me, part of taking fashion seriously includes looking at it through an intersectional queer feminist lens and analysing what our clothes and our style and who gets celebrated for them say about our society. And I think the clean girl aesthetic says a lot. It's just not necessarily good. Defining the clean girl aesthetic. The clean girl aesthetic is synonymous with a no makeup look. It's all about having dewy, glowing skin, hair slicked back into a bun or a ponytail, dainty gold jewellery and claw clips, clothes that should be well-fitting, polished but understated. It's a very minimalist look, even though it takes seemingly endless lotions and potions to achieve it. Absolutely not. I can barely remember in which order I'm supposed to put these products on. It also overlaps with the that girl aesthetic and the aspects of the vanilla girl aesthetic, I think. I'm slightly out of my depth when it comes to the exact specifics of TikTok aesthetic trends, can you tell? But it's not only about the minimalist look. There's a number of lifestyle elements that go into the clean girl aesthetic. Clean girls aren't only supposed to have the no makeup look perfected, but also to be constantly working on improving themselves. As Sakshi Royalty wrote for Elle in 2024, the clean girl wakes up at the crack of dawn, practices yoga, and makes the most delicious smoothie bowls. Nobody organises their schedule like she does. She even colour codes her planner and is always prepared for everything. You're supposed to have everything together and look perfect, even when you're cleaning your house, which should never look dirty, obviously, or messy. The clean girl aesthetic gives the illusion of being effortless and easy, whilst actually being anything but. As beauty reporter Jessica Defino put it in her Substack post, how the 5-minute face became the $5,000 face. Minimal makeup then is maximal everything else. It's more masquerading as less. Framing the trend as a 5-minute makeover, 2-minute makeup, or simply clean allows customers of a certain class, the beauty bourgeoisie, to reap the rewards of cosmetic labour without the gauche appearance of having performed said labour. It's all about self-acceptance and being your best self. Yeah, that performance, all the work you're putting in to make it seem like you're not doing any work at all, is why the clean girl aesthetic isn't necessarily a move towards more people being comfortable in how they look. And if I'm going to put energy into putting makeup on, don't I want it to look like I'm wearing makeup? Yeah. Writing about natural beauty for Dazed in 2023, Daisy Schofield said, on the face of it, this might sound like a step in the right direction. The idea that people have been freed from the shackles of oppressive beauty standards thanks to clean girl makeup and the likes should raise suspicion. In fact, it feels like the clean girl aesthetic just dresses up gendered labour and reinforces white supremacist cis-heteropatriarchal norms of self-care, which feels deeply insidious. Speaking of insidious, AI is growing more impressive by the day, which leaves many questions unanswered about how safe we actually are online, even in the safe areas. So it's a good thing that I partnered up with Surfshark. Yes, welcome to the ad section of the video. Surfshark makes online browsing safe with their Easy Connect feature, allowing you to change your virtual location at the click of your fingers and granting you access to sites, services and content that you don't usually see. You don't actually click your fingers, it's a click of a mouse. It's not really magic. One of my favourite features is that you can use the VPN across an unlimited number of devices. I can put my mind at ease knowing my entire family is protected, doing anything online from working to shopping to gaming, no ads, trackers, malware or phishing attempts. Surfshark have generously offered my viewers a coupon code for an extra 4 months free on sign up. So, to ensure your privacy today, simply head to surfshark.com/Jessica. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen now and enter the code Jessica. Come on, get your phone out. You done it? Yes? Excellent. Now, let's get back to how the clean girl aesthetic does perpetuate racism.
This is Put a Finger Down Clean Girl edition. The more fingers that you have down, the more clean girl aesthetic that you are. Your go-to hairstyle is either a slick back or a bouncy blowout. You tend to wear neutral colors. You wear a more dewy makeup base. You prefer dainty minimalist jewelry. You journal at least once a week. You regularly do either yoga, Pilates, or hot girl walks. You have a neutral color nails right now, like a bubble bath, baby pink, white, or French tips. You own a pair of over-the-ear headphones. You have a self-care routine, and you own multiple loungewear and activewear sets. How many did you put down? Because if you got all 10, you are literally the clean girl.
How are you finding the time for all of these bouncy blowouts, journal entries, Pilates classes and matching loungewear sets? It's not that hard. Are you okay? I may be chronically sleep deprived. Recycled style and racism. It's also important to acknowledge that many aspects of the current clean girl look have been around for decades. It's just, as journalist Tiana Randall wrote for ID in 2022, they have usually appeared on black and brown women. A heritage of slicked back buns, gold hoops and buttery skin have now been co-opted and reduced to a mere trend, now represented by white women. It's not surprising, given, all of history and colonialization, that the clean girl aesthetic co-opts the style of women of colour and gives the credit to white women.
But in calling it a clean girl, I feel like it's insensitive because so many black and brown people have been labeled as dirty for so long. So you took an aesthetic that we already had, a look that we had already created, flooded the market with exclusively your faces, your look, your hair, and then labeled that clean girl.
In an interview with Carla Uchis for Teen Vogue in 2023, Ashley Garcia-Lecano wrote that trends that are created by Latin communities, and especially those specifically created by those who are black and brown, are often referred to as hoochie or chonga derogatorily. That is until they're popularized and embraced by non-Latin white folks in media and pop culture. Take that slick back bun, clean girl aesthetic that black and brown women have been utilizing for decades, but was accredited to Hailey Bieber. Yet the main proponents of the clean girl aesthetic never seem to address the discrimination experienced by women of colour for espousing this look before it was trendy.
That aesthetic, okay, we're talking lip gloss, big earrings, and having your hair slicked back. If you were a black person at my school or a person of color, having that look was considered, I know it's not PC, I don't like to use this term, ghetto, which is a negative term that people would label black people with if they were considered like uncouth or like not mainstream stylish, also heavily associated with poverty, heavily associated with high rates of crime. Like that term, it was a negative term to give to a black person. So I was always, kind of like towards, let me just dress in the way that all of my white peers are dressing. And that's kind of how I maneuvered through life. And I think it's really weird now that trend that was so heavily negatively associated with black people is now super trendy and in.
And as writer Whitney Elise pointed out in her Medium article, the clean girl aesthetic is part of a bigger erasure problem. The clean girl aesthetic is far From the first time, style or beauty practice that's standard among women of colour has become trendy because thin, white, cisgender women started doing it. So you're telling me I'm not allowed to do the clean girl aesthetic because I'm white? Absolutely not. If the clean girl style is a style and look you love, you go for it. Stopping you from connecting with your own personal style is definitely not the message here. As Kaiser Elaine wrote for Impact, the problem isn't that non-black and non-brown women are using a clean girl aesthetic. The problem is that slicked back hair, gold hoops and clear lip gloss are being treated as a new aesthetic that white women created. Black and brown women have worked for decades to break stereotypes upheld by the same women being credited for setting these trends. Basically, is it just an association with whiteness that we're celebrating? Is this like when the Kardashians had cornrows? The short answer to that is yes, but shall we dig into the longer answer? Cleanliness equals morality and more racism. The phrase cleanliness is next to godliness is generally attributed to English cleric John Wesley in the 1770s, and it really speaks to how we live in a society that correlates being clean with being moral, with being a good person. Well, it is important to be clean. Dude, we get it. Except that certainly hasn't been seen as true throughout history. In YouTuber Shanspere's video, The Downfall of Anti-Hygiene Influencers, they draw on the dirt on clean, the unsanitized history by Catherine Aschenberg in exploring the link between cleanliness and morality. They explain that early Christians considered being dirty a sign of holiness, and even thought that hot baths should be avoided because the heat would inspire lust. Jumping forward to the Middle Ages, whilst washing had begun to be seen as important, the bubonic plague changed that. During this time, people believed that baths would soften and weaken the body, making it more susceptible to the plague. Steam baths and bathhouses were banned because they would open your pores, and as a result, pestiferous vapour could rapidly enter the body and cause sudden death. Oh, the vapours! As Shakespeare points out, this was a very European-centric approach to hygiene at the time, and people like the Egyptians and the Aztecs spent a lot more time washing, which with our current scientific understanding we know is a much better approach to dealing with things like the plague. Oh, the plague! As Shakespeare explains, back in Europe in the 16th through 18th century, the focus was on signalling cleanliness rather than practicing cleanliness. I'm sure signalling cleanliness isn't something we still do by posting videos of us spending ages cleaning our faces using natural, clean beauty products, right? Shakespeare continues, saying,
They wore white linen underneath their clothing, which they thought cleansed their bodies of impurities. This linen became so integral to the way cleanliness was performed that fashion at the time began to change.
These shirts also became an emblem of civility, which Europeans used to distinguish themselves from the African and native people they terrorized through colonization. Yeah, I definitely recommend you go and watch Shakespeare's full video. I'll leave a link in the video description. Writing for Galden in 2021, journalist Ruchira Sarma highlights the work of Andrew Kettler, author of The Smell of Slavery, Olfactory Racism and the Atlantic World, whose book explores a modern form of capitalism that wanted to categorize the proletariat as inferior to justify the extraction of their labor. Sharma explains that by labelling groups as stinking, Europeans were able to rationalize a modern economic system that profited from dehumanizing colonized people. Cleanliness became a tool of white supremacy, colonialism, and slavery. In 2021, culture writer and Guardian columnist Teo Barrow wrote for Best Health that during slavery, the association between dirtiness and blackness was prevalent throughout the British Empire. The Victorian idea of cleanliness became tied to the concept of imperialism and Victorian superiority. Barrow points to an exhibit at the Down the Veldt Museum in Winnipeg which showcases just how these notions of black people as being dirty or unclean were perpetuated through racist imagery and advertisements. According to the museum, soap in the late 1800s represented more than the physical aspect of getting clean. I.e., it was about your moral purity, and the link between moral purity and whiteness. Barrow notes that one example of this in the museum is the notorious Pears soap advertisements, one of which shows a child in a bathtub going from black to white, a racist representation of what it means to go from dirty to clean. And this kind of advertising is less in the past than we would like to imagine. As recently as 2017, Dove, who are often praised for their inclusive adverts, were criticised for a campaign that used these same racist ideas. I'm putting these images on screen for those of you who haven't had to conceive of darker skin and dirt being linked before. Those of you who didn't actually know that there was a historical basis, and those of you who have never been told that your skin is too dark. Like colonialism and white supremacy themselves, the link between whiteness and cleanliness has remained. In an article for Refinery29 in 2024, journalist L'Oreal Blackett wrote that enslaved black people were often prevented from using soap and forced to live in unhygienic conditions. Yet, the stigma that black people are somehow inherently dirty prevailed. Sharma also talks about her own experiences of this. The reality is if you're from a marginalised background, you've likely lived a life in fear of people calling you dirty. I detested the idea of ever giving someone this ammunition as a South Asian, as one of the internalised terrors I had grown up with was being accused of smelling like curry, a common and obviously extremely crass racist stereotype. I know this might not be fun to think about, but it's important to consider the actual connotations behind the clean gal aesthetic, which, let's face it, are racist. In Elise's article about the clean girl aesthetic, she notes that clean implies pure, unsullied, untainted, white womanhood that has been epitomised at the standard of womanhood. Their femininity in association with purity dates back to the Victorian era and has wound its way into Western perception of beauty since then. Sharma agrees, saying, as Janice Mathis, Executive Director of the National Council of Negro Women, told NPR, this insidious belief that black women are offensive in their natural state is used to shame them into feeling unclean, so we're easier to market possibly toxic products to. Black women feel their hair is seen as dirty and unprofessional, so they spend more money than their white counterparts on maintenance. In short, there's a massive racist history between how we link cleanliness with morality, and people have rightly pointed out how the clean girl aesthetic feeds into these ideas. In Randall's piece on the problem with the clean girl aesthetic, she says, as Western minimalist and elitist propaganda sends signals of calling no makeup looks clean, it carries the connotation that grandiose measures of beauty, experimental glam, and cultural signifiers are dirty. It's no coincidence that the aesthetic framed by white women that includes notions of cleanliness and minimalism panders to obscure forms of femininity and purity culture. Who gets to be feminine and who gets to be clean are massively exclusionary. So who gets to be a clean girl? Watching these videos about how to do the clean girl aesthetic, there's an implicit implication that you're supposed to want to be one of these girls. You're supposed to aspire to look like this, to live like this. And because the very name of the clean girl aesthetic positions dirty, the opposite of clean, there's an element of shame built in for anyone who isn't a clean girl or doing the clean girl aesthetic. They're dirty. It's just not just a style or an aesthetic. It's become a value judgment on your worth as a person. I mean, maybe, but it's not like the clean girl look is that hard to achieve. But it is. Beyond the racist history of what being clean looks like, if you're trans, disabled, fat, if you're over 25, or even if you have acne-prone skin, you probably don't get to be a clean girl. Also, if you have children, where are these people finding the time? And woe betide you if you exist at the intersection of multiple marginalised identities. Think about the amount of time that goes into achieving the clean girl look. Is that possible for people with disabilities or chronic illnesses? Do you have the energy to do a full skincare routine every day? If you use some of your limited spoons to do a no makeup look, will you be able to eat dinner later or read your child a bedtime story? Do you need help to shower? And what about those people whose disabilities mean that they need help to shower or bathe? I only have 30 minutes of support from a carer twice a day. How much of a balancing blow dryer, nail care and face mask and no makeup can I fit into that time? As journalist Nicole Frio wrote in a Medium article, in late-stage capitalism, access to hygiene is fraught. Even if someone can afford hygiene products, many disabilities can make it difficult for one to shower regularly. From physical obstacles like an inaccessible bathroom to mental illness that complicate the ability to do simple tasks like showering, hygiene can be tricky for many people. I have a bath once a week and it takes me 2 hours. I came across a Reddit thread in the ADHD women's subreddit called Living with ADHD in a Clean Girl Aesthetic World is Really Hard. So this one is a long quote, but I wanted to share all of it with you because I found it really validating and I hope some of you do too. I, 22F, have come to the conclusion that no matter what I do, I simply won't be able to live up to being tidy or clean or fresh and natural like all the rest of the world. And it is so exhausting. I'm sure at least someone else out there has a hard time with this, but living in a world where there are restock videos of fresh, clean, organised products and makeup looks for natural beauty or skincare routines that last an hour or even 30 minutes when I can barely remember to brush my teeth. Some weeks I go days without a shower because I walk past the bathroom feeling zero energy to go in there and to go through the steps. My hair gets greasy fast, and no, hair training doesn't work for everyone, and I'm sorry I can't remember to put away my dirty dishes, or remember to pluck my eyebrows, or something else out of the tens of thousands of things girls are apparently supposed to do these days and be put together, and all the other women in the world scream, support each other, as long as it's clear you're putting in enough effort. It's hard to exist these days when you're looked at as dirty or lazy, when really you go through pits of self-hate because you don't understand why it's so hard for you to just get the F up and wash your face or put on a fresh shirt. I related a lot to this post, and many of the other comments from women about their experiences. I'm not gonna pass a test for adulthood by many metrics of society is to define it. I can't drive, I struggle to cook anything in under an hour or two, and my organisational systems are, firstly, multiple, and secondly, I need to see it to know it exists. Yes, I have now got an ADHD diagnosis, absolutely. No one is shocked. The work needed to be a clean girl simply isn't achievable for me, or let's be honest, for most people. It's zero makeup or it's a full face.
But it's not like people are going to judge you if you don't do the clean girl aesthetic.
Aren't they? In an interview for Jessica DeFino's Substack, Jane Mattingly, who's the CEO of Recovery, Love and Care and has a master's degree in clinical mental health and counselling, said, with health, there's this ableist belief that if we aren't eating right, if we aren't balanced in all ways, if we aren't meditating and having the clean girl aesthetic or the hot girl walk or doing the things that will make others perceive that we are well, that we are fulfilled, that we are healthy, then I think we feel pretty unwell when we can't get to that place. And lots of us can't get there. Mattingly specifically mentioning the clean girl aesthetic here emphasises how this performance of cleanliness is tied to who we perceive as being healthy. And so we have an idea of health that's tied to thinness, that's tied to whiteness, that's tied to class.
Which, in all fairness to the clean girl aesthetic, is nothing new.
In a post on her Substack blog, Nina's Tote Bag, journalist Nisha Shah wrote about how the clean girl aesthetic feels like it's about signalling a certain class status. She writes that there's something insidious about the idea that the best makeup look is one that communicates effortlessness and ease, even while it actually takes quite a bit of effort that must be hidden. Additionally, for many people, having good skin is actually a function of wealth, often attained not through eye masks and hyaluronic acid serums, but through Botox, plastic surgery and other cosmetic procedures, all of which are on the rise. The TikTokers pushing the clean girl look are overwhelmingly white and skinny. The clean makeup products they push are also quite expensive. Every video has the exact same Kosas concealer and Lila skin tint and Rare Beauty blush and Charlotte Tilbury contour wand and Dior lip oil. Wow, everyone likes the same thing.
What? Could capitalism also be part of the problem here? I totally didn't see that coming.
And it's not just elaborate skincare and makeup that you need money for. Kat McCarthy wrote for her campus in 2024 that the clean girl aesthetic tells girls that they need to buy overpriced acai bowls, excessive amounts of skincare products, and a new wardrobe of neutrals to be considered clean. Not all of us have the money to spend on Pilates classes or sweet green, and that does not make us unclean. And then there's the fat phobia. It's not just that all the people you see in this particular vein of social media are thin, but the clean girl's aesthetic emphasis on natural beauty includes showing off your collarbones and other markers of being straight-sized. McCarthy also notes how the clean girl aesthetic encourages subscribing to clean eating habits that usually include cutting out almost all processed foods and avoiding sugar and carbs as much as possible, all whilst committing to strenuous workout regimes. These things can promote fear of foods and encourage disordered eating habits, especially if we tell young girls that they need to do these things to be considered clean.
Nope. I don't think it's fair to call it fatphobic. Not everybody who does the clean girl aesthetic is skinny and white.
There is some representation for women who aren't thin, white, abled and cis in clean girl content, but not only is that representation much harder to find, it also relies on those women meeting other beauty standards. As @It's Adeshowa pointed out in a tweet, the issue with the clean girl aesthetic is that it only represents skinny, thin, loose curl textured, desirable black women with no blemishes on their face, implying that anyone outside of that aesthetic is dirty. Spots, acne, scars, stretch marks, body hair, natural hair, none of these fit the clean girl aesthetic. In her Hair Campus article, McCarthy pointed out how the no makeup look just isn't a possibility for everyone. For example, due to my EDS, I have lots of tiny little scratches, scars on my face, because I scratch really, really easily, literally from a ring on my face. And oh, she's got another scratch. And then it takes ages for them to heal. And then I just have little marks. The bottom line is that the clean girl aesthetic is classic. It's unachievable. It's old money. And we all know that. But there's one quote from Shanspere's video that really stuck with me. If you fail to comply with these practices, your cleanliness or hygiene is called into question.
So it's hard not to see the clean girl aesthetic as just another unrealistic beauty standard that asks us to police each other and takes up all the energy we could be spending on dismantling the patriarchy and fighting heteronormativity, maybe.
Or continuing to stay alive.
Or that.
Gendered beauty labour and good bodies.
Ugh, wait, are you saying I can't be a feminist if I'm a clean girl? I thought feminism was all about being able to choose how you want to look and act.
It's not that you can't be a feminist and a clean girl, but it is worth examining whether you're just labelling something empowering or feminist because there are women doing it without examining how it plays into structural oppression. As Chantal pointed out in her Substack post on the clean girl aesthetic, critically examining the way society pushes unfair and unrealistic beauty standards on women makes it a lot harder to enjoy skincare as self-care. It's harder to enjoy indulging in sheet masks and squalene when you remember that you're doing it because society's told us women have to look younger and have perfect skin. Can we still have fun with makeup even while knowingly perpetuating society's beauty standards for women? Can we enjoy skincare and beauty while still taking a critical eye to the industry that profits off our collective endless need to look younger, dewier, more perfect? I don't even like dewy looks, I like matte ones.
I'm not saying the answer to these questions is definitely no, but it's important to think about.
And the work that goes into maintaining the clean girl aesthetic is very gendered. In a Mashable article about the productivity aesthetic, Christiana Silva quotes Caitlin Marisol Sweeney Romero, author of In Wellness, TikTok morning routines, eating well and getting ready to be that girl, who argues that this kind of aspirational content ascribes to white supremacist views of beauty and productivity by idolizing the look of wellness as that of a woman who is laboring at all times for her job and for her body, and who is young, white or white passing, thin, able-bodied, cisgender, and whose performance of gender abides by heteronormative expectations of femininity. And that performance of femininity can be incredibly restrictive. There's a 2023 Dazed article by culture writer Billy Walker that explores the misogyny underlying all the girl trends we've seen recently. Yes, girl. The girl trend not only trivializes women's interest, but also women's suffering. There are over 883 million TikToks of women showing themselves and talking about themselves on hot girl walks for their mental health. And this is largely a continuation of the individual responsibility placed on us to take care of our mental health that was popular on Instagram in the 2010s, with posts explaining boring self-care tasks, content which again was aimed primarily at women. It's not to say that any of these practices don't help, but it's another trend which puts the onus on us rather than highlighting that our well-being is a societal issue. We need accessible therapy and mental health services more than we need to take ourselves for a hot girl walk.
But things like yoga can really help with chronic pain. Have you tried it?
I'm not saying that things like yoga or hot girl walks can't help with our mental health. But do you think people with mental illnesses and disabilities haven't heard that before? I have heard that exact thing way too many times. And I'm not even meant to be doing yoga under doctor's orders because I am too flexible, so. In an article for Pop Sugar in 2020, Carly Stickney wrote about how they frequently hear, "Oh, you probably need to work out more," when they opened up about their depression. They say that although there's some research suggesting exercise can help reduce the symptoms of depression, it is more complicated and nuanced than that. It's not that I don't understand the science, it's just that finding the motivation to go for a run or do squats is a lot to ask when you're struggling to even get out of bed. Fatigue is one of the most common symptoms of depression, and it can be debilitating. When you're feeling that way, being told to exercise and then not being able to muster the strength is only going to make things worse. The clean girl aesthetic contributes to the idea that our individual actions can solve or overcome systemic oppression and structural issues.
Like recycling.
Yes, exactly, because those 2 plastic straws you need for drinking due to a muscle weakness are absolutely going to be what tanks the planet, and not the 71% of global greenhouse gas emissions since 1988 have come from just 100 companies.
My dad says that actually CO2 emissions are driven by people in third world countries having too many babies. We don't talk much. But it's far harder to make aesthetically pleasing content that will trend on TikTok's For You page about advocating for mental health services than about your clean girl morning routine.
And thus, we as a society end up judging people who can't hot girl walk themselves out of their depression. We're told that if you can't self-care your way out,
You cannot self-care your way out of mental illness or chronic illness or disability. Universal healthcare for all.
that it's our fault. In her ID article, Randall quotes Brianne Farr's article of Aesthetic Labour, who explains that women described feeling burdened with the task of managing unruly bodies, maintaining appropriate standards of cleanliness, hairlessness and thinness, and hoping that they would not offend or otherwise step outside of the boundaries of appropriate bodies. The need to discipline their own, always failing, always in need of maintenance, always problematic bodies appeared both in overt and subtextual ways throughout women's narratives about their bodies. It's not only that you're not trendy if you're not doing the clean girl aesthetic, it's that you're, and your body, not good enough. There's something Defino said in her interview with Mattingly that I thought was interesting. We've been taught this false idea of what a good body behaves like, what a body that doesn't betray you behaves like. So a lot of activism in this space tends to focus on all bodies are good bodies and all skin is good skin, that kind of rhetoric, and I don't know how much that's really helping. We're sort of detaching from our individual symptoms, but we're still very much attached to the morality of it all. What we need to detach from is the morality part, the good or bad or healthy or unhealthy part, because that morality part, that ethical ideal, is what keeps us focused on the surface level solutions. Solutions that claim to make us look like we have good skin or a good body, because that ethical ideal only exists in relation to other people, right? So we stay focused on how our bodies are perceived by others when we could be focusing on the support our bodies need from us, whatever that looks like.
And there's a term for this value-neutral approach to our bodies that I end up thinking about a lot when it comes to the clean girl aesthetic.
Body neutrality and capitalism.
Wait, is that like body positivity?
Kind of. I'm going to share the definition given by WebMD because I think it puts it well. Body neutrality is simply the act of taking a neutral stance towards your body, both emotionally and physically. That means not supporting the hatred towards your body's limitations or investing time and energy to love it either. You can simply be at peace with your body. Well, in their interview, Defino and Mattingly talk about the concept of everyone is beautiful. Defino says, it's often made out to be this expansion of beauty ideals, but at least from my perspective, it's not very expansive. It's kind of just reinforcing the idea that in order to be happy or feel worthy, you must also believe you are beautiful, which is very hard to do while immersed in a culture that constantly tells you you're not beautiful enough, whether covertly or overtly. As Sophie Hagen writes in Happy Fat, Taking Up Space in a World That Wants to Shrink You, one of the main problems with the term body positivity is that the word positive is in there. You could also just be body neutral, where looks and appearance simply don't matter. I don't always want to be positive about my body. As a disabled person, I'm allowed to be rude about my body. I will say things like, my hands are kind of useless, or this is my broken foot, it's deformed. It is deformed. That's the thing my doctor wrote on my file. No, babe, your body's not broken. It's just... Okay, don't tell me what my body is, and especially don't tell me that my body isn't disabled, because it is. And the symptoms of that suck, and I actually don't love that, but I find the word itself quite empowering. I know that I am more than what I'm capable of on any one day, but body positivity tells me that even on days when my body isn't cooperating or I've paralyzed one of my arms, I should still feel strong and beautiful and powerful. And I don't. And I imagine I'm far from alone in that. In their book, Hagen also writes about how body positivity has been separated from what the original fat liberation movement stood for. By using the word body instead of fat, we easily lose sight of what the core of the body image issue is, the hatred of fatness and fat people. By allowing the focus to rest on the body positivity movement, we are allowing wealthy companies to cash in on a fight that has been fought by fat activists since the 1960s. They took fat and replaced it with body to erase the very existence of fat people and make it more palatable and sexy to consumers. Unlike fat liberation, body positivity can be co-opted by capitalism. And of course, the clean gal aesthetic plays a role in this. In her Dazed article, Schofield points out that natural beauty, as it's been sold to us by cosmetic companies, is a sham. It has nothing to do with acceptance. Rather, it exposes how the goalposts are always shifting for women. If the rise of natural beauty teaches us anything, it's that we need to let go of the idea that there is a natural way for women to look, and instead embrace a vision of beauty that allows our bodies to just exist, however we wish them to.
It's similar to how capitalism sells us bath bombs and elaborate skincare routines and green juices and yoga as self-care, and then judges us if these don't fix us.
It's okay not to be okay with our bodies, but it can be helpful for some people to realise that this is exactly what capitalism and other systems of oppression want. They tell us that we have a problem. Oh no, that their products can fix it. Thank goodness. They tell us that it's us who have to work harder if we're struggling. Rather than tying our self-worth to our bodies, we could just move toward not seeing our bodies as a moral judgment. Writing about why she advocates for using identity first rather than person first language when talking about disability, disability mentor, writer, and content creator Nina Tim writes that, "I would argue that my disability runs through all of me, every area of my life, in both positive and more challenging ways. I do not wish to separate myself from my disability because my disability is a neutral thing." Side point, absolutely love Nina. Here's her Instagram. Completely go follow her. She's incredible. She's also a parent of a disabled child, and if you too have a disabled child, you should follow her because she rocks it. She A++. We don't have to be positive about our bodies or our disabilities, but we should also get to live in a society that doesn't try to make us feel like our frustrations are our fault, rather than systemic ableism, racism, classism, anti-fatness.
Self-care can just be aiming for body neutrality.
There's an Instagram post by Tim that I really love and I want to share. But we're not supposed to be okay with our disabled parts or bellies that jiggle when you wiggle. We're supposed to constantly try to change ourselves, and if we can't change to fit into those elusive Western beauty standards, then we should definitely cover up. For most of my life, I was deeply ashamed of my disabled parts, thought they were a flaw, something that made me less than. For the last 8 years, I've been learning and unlearning, aiming for neutrality when love felt a bit too challenging, but definitely vowing to leave my body alone, not pick on it, not echo the words of the awful kids that told me my body was gross. If there's one thing you take away from this video, I want it to be that. You don't have to love your body. I certainly don't love mine every day, but the lies we've been told about what our bodies should look like and how we should perform health, cleanliness, and even femininity, they're just that, lies.
And it's worth reminding yourself of that when you see yet another TikTok about the clean girl aesthetic or any other trend that makes you feel bad about yourself. My top tips for skincare when you have low energy. Makeup wipes. They're already wet, so you don't even need to get over there to the sink. Get the biodegradable ones so you feel a bit better about the planet. Don't ever flush them down the toilet though. I don't know who first told the lie that it was possible to do that, but it is a lie. I prefer ones for sensitive skin with some kind of moisturizing lotion already built in, because then you are cleansing, toning, and moisturizing all in one. And you can even clean your armpits with them. Absolutely no judgment. Don't get the exfoliating ones though. They are just going to painfully scrape off your face. Exfoliate just on the days when you have the energy. Kiehl's Night Oil. Just your face, your neck. You only need a few drops, don't go wild. You could massage your face to get the blood moving, but honestly you'll be doing that when you're cleaning it every day with your makeup wipes and then putting the oil on, so you get the idea. And lastly, a 50 SPF. You put it on your face, your neck, and your hand, also your arm sometimes. Do it on the places that see the sun. Even if you are lying in bed all day, the sun is still coming in through the windows, okay? And of course, forget what everyone else is doing. Forget what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing your best, and it's enough. You are always enough. Always. Whew. How are you doing, folks? Do you need to grab a drink? Have a stretch? Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the clean girl aesthetic and why you shouldn't feel like you're failing if you can't meet the utterly unrealistic and exclusionary expectations it gives us. There we go. I got there in the end. I want to reiterate that I don't want to shame people who like the look of the clean girl aesthetic, but rather I want to draw attention to how inaccessible it is to most of us and what it says about the labour expected of women and people of marginalised genders. Please leave a comment if you liked this video or if you've also experienced these feelings of shame that your life doesn't perfectly match the clean girl aesthetic or any of the other myths they used to sell us skincare and bath bombs. I actually can't use bath bombs because I'm allergic to them. And if you did like this video, I think you'd enjoy my video about why all of our underwear has teeny tiny bows on it. It's a fashion history deep dive. Or maybe this video about the ugly laws and how looking visibly disabled was literally illegal. Oh, you should also follow me on Instagram, where I am Jessica out of the closet. If you're interested in photos of me and all my vintage lesbian fabulousness and being very gay with my wife Claudia. And thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. To ensure your privacy today and to get 4 extra months for free, simply head to surfshark.com/Jessica. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code now on screen and enter the code Jessica. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye!